Perhaps this had made you feel strange before. The doorbell rings, someone wants to come in, pay a visit, have a conversation. But inside you feel a discomfort, an inner resistance, a deep urge to simply say no. You don't hate people and you're not angry at the world. But to be honest, you simply don't enjoy having visitors. You prefer your quiet home, your undisturbed routine, your preserved energy. If this sounds familiar, take a deep breath because in this video, we are going to talk about something that hardly anyone openly admits, the real intimate and often misunderstood discomforts of people who cannot bear it when someone enters their personal space. And no, you are neither rude or antisocial. According to Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, this behavior may point to something much deeper within your nature. Today, I show you 6 insights from Jung that explain why people simply don't like having visitors and why that is not only natural but could also be a sign of valuable inner psychological process. So stay with us until the end, because if you ever felt guilty for wanting to be alone, you may realize today that this has much more to do with your psychological development than with just a character flaw. And before we dive into Jung's insights, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Do you also feel uncomfortable when someone suddenly shows up at your door unannounced? I'd really like to know if you see yourself in this. Have you ever wondered why some people thrive during social gatherings, parties, and home visits, while you, on the other hand, feel drained just at the thought of having guests? Or maybe you enjoy talking and having good relationships, but as soon as someone wants to enter your home, something in you recoils. It's as if the merged presence of another person exhausts your energy, and there's an explanation for that. Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists of the 20th century, was the first to popularize two now widely known terms, introverted and extroverted. But don't be mistaken, it isn't just about shyness or sociability. Jung wasn't talking about social behavior, but about the movement of psychic energy. The extrovert directs their energy outward. They are nourished by contact and external stimulation. The outside world gives them strength. The introvert, on the other hand, functions almost in the opposite way. They recharge from within. Their source of energy is silence, introspection, solitude. When they are overly exposed to the external, long conversation, unexpected visitor, noise or interruptions, their minds begin to shut down, not out of arrogance, but out of psychological necessity. And this is the key point. Not liking to receive visitors is not a social deficit. It is a direct expression of how your energy is structured. If you are more introverted, and many people are without even realizing it, then your home is not just a physical place, but a sacred space, a cocoon, a place where your energy reorganizes. And when someone enters that space, even with the best of intentions, they touch invisible threads you've been shutting out all day. The mere presence of the other person forces you to activate your persona, your social mask, and doing so, you move away from your true self. And you know what? That is deeply exhausting. Jung said that introversion is not a conscious choice, but a disposition of the soul. So when you try to against inner impulse, you only lead to more conflict and exhaustion. Some might say, oh, they're so reserved, they just don't like company. But that many don't see this. What seems like coldness or disinterest is often just self-protection and psychological shield, an invisible battery erected by the conscious to guard the inner self. Carl Jung called this process the shadow. And the shadow, well, it's a part of you that you may not even fully know, but it's there, quiet, hidden, and it governs your feelings, your reactions, your deepest discomfort. When someone enters your home, you are not just opening the physical door, you are unconsciously letting them into the space where your energy is its purest, but also at its most vulnerable. And that's exactly where the shadow begins to act. The shadow contains everything you suppress for some reason, aspects of your personality you had to hide, old fear, unresolved memories, unspoken wounds. Imagine this, someone rings the bell, you sit down together, start talking, and instead of relaxing, you feel uneasy inside. A strange discomfort rises up, and sometimes you can't even explain why. The truth is, the presence of that person their voice, their way of being might unconsciously touch a blind spot in your psyche, something you haven't yet dared to look at, something you leave in the shadow. That's why Jung say, what you do not bring into consciousness will appear in your life as fate. And sometimes that fate manifests as social discomfort, a seemingly harmless visit that certainly stirs up irritation, a sense of invasion, and the most physical urge to ask the person to leave. It's not arrogance, it's your unconscious trying to protect your inner integrity. And there's more, the shadow doesn't just contain darkness. It also holds hidden potential, abilities, talents, and truths you haven't yet had the courage to embrace. The more you live on the surface, adapt, stay polite for social interactions, the less room your soul has to breathe. So if you feel the need to be alone, if the thoughts of visitors overwhelm you, your shadow might be saying, hey, listen, you need silence, you need space, you need yourself. And hearing that, there is an act of courage. Do you know that feeling of relief when you finally come home after a long day, the door closed, you take off your shoes, take a deep breath, and you just are? In Jungian psychology, the home is not just a physical place, it's a symbol of the soul, it reflects your inner state. When someone enters that space, they are not just stepping into your living room, they are entering sacred territory. Jung believes that symbols speak more about us than the words ever could, and the house is one of the most powerful symbols of the psyche. It represents the self, the center of our being, where everything finds balance, where healing happens. Its room symbolizes an aspect of your personality, the bedroom, your intimacy, the living room, your social mask, the kitchen, your emotional nourishment, the basement, the unconscious, the attic, your higher thoughts, and the front door, the boundary between you and the other. When someone crosses that threshold, your unconscious senses that something from the outside is entering. It's not just a physical presence, it's a foreign energy filled with thoughts, stories, and tensions. And if you are a sensitive, introverted person, or if you are on the path of individuation, the process of becoming your true self, this can be extremely assaulting. For Jung, the house was not a defense against the world, it was an inner mirror. If you feel at peace in your home, that something inside you is also in order. But if you feel that visits disturb your calm, change the atmosphere, destroy the silence, then perhaps it is your conscience whispering to you. This soul is still under constructions. I'm not ready to open on the doors, and that's perfectly okay. Protecting your home also means protecting yourself. In-depth psychology, respecting your boundaries is a central step toward healing and interaction. So if you ever felt guilty for not wanting to receive visitors or preferring to be alone, now you know you are not isolating yourself, you are honoring your temple where your soul resides. Have you ever put a polite smile when deep down you just wanted to be quiet? Made a coffee, engaged in a small talk, acted friendly while secretly thinking, when is this visit going to end? It sounds harsh, doesn't it? You feel ungrateful and heartless, but don't worry, Carl Jung helps us understand what's happening within us. Jung called this persona. The mask we wear to show ourselves to the world, it is a social role, the versions of us that adapts to work, to family, to relationships, even to a visit. The persona isn't false, it's just limited. It's not your whole soul, it's a fragment, usually the most socially acceptable one. The problem begins when you have to wear this mask in your own home, where you should be able to be your true self. For people with a particularly strong persona, and this includes many introverted, sensitive, observant individuals, a visit can be extremely draining. Certainly, you have to perform, choose your words, control your facial expressions, keep track of the length of the conversation, think about the dishes in the sink, the light being too bright or too dim. All of that consumes psychic energy, a lot of it. Jung said, the persona is necessary, it helps us function in society. But when we mistake the persona for our true self, the soul begins to cry out. Perhaps that's why you feel such inner resistance to visits. It's not about disliking people, it's about feeling forced to pretend, to uphold a socially acceptable image. Even when all you really want is peace, you'll be barefoot in silence, staring out a window. And do you know what's even worse? Many people spend years wearing their persona. Even at home, they welcome guests, make an effort, smile, and are internally completely exhausted, irritated, drained. But here comes liberating truth grounded in the depth psychology. You have the right to be completely yourself in your own space. You are allowed to say no to visits. You are allowed to decline invitations. You are allowed to be unavailable. Because while you are trying to please others, you abandon yourself. You are allowed to say no. There are moments when you just want to be alone, not out of drama or sadness, but because your soul is calling for silence. In such moments, many people feel strange or feel antisocial. After all, we live in a culture that celebrates those who are constantly surrounded by others, loud, active, always present. But Carl Jung saw it differently. For him, the impulse to withdraw is often the beginning of one life's most important journeys, the path of individuation. Individuation means you becoming who you were born to be, not what society expects, not what your parents protected, not the persona you adopted, but your true self, with light and shadow, consciousness and unconsciousness, essence and truth. And this process doesn't happen in noise, it's in silence, in retreat, in pause. That's why discomforts with visitors isn't laziness or emotionally instability. It is your soul trying to protect you, keeping you away from distractions so you can hear what is being whispered deep within you. There's something inside you that wants to surface, but for that you need time alone. Jung said it clearly. Loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to express what truly matters to you. And what could be important than listening to yourself? But how can that happen in the middle of commotion, with a guest who won't leave, with conversations that don't touch the soul? The truth is, some phases of life demand conscious isolation, not as an escape, but as immersion. You don't withdraw to disappear, you withdraw to return, fully, clearer, stronger, more yourself. While the outside world demands your attention, parties, social obligations, expectations, your inner world asks for something else. Stay a moment longer. Don't open the door yet. Take care of yourself first. Maybe you already felt it while listening, that strange feeling of relief, that quiet, deep calm when someone finally puts words to something you felt for a long time but could never explain. And yes, believe it, this discomfort with visitors, this most physical unease you're long seen as a personal flaw, is actually a reflection of something much deeper. If Carl Jung were sitting next to you now, with his calm, concentrating gaze, he might say, "You are not wrong for wanting to be alone. You are simply listening to the voice of your soul, and that is rare." So let me now share with you 6 deep, true human insights from Jungian psychology about people who prefer to be alone, especially in their own homes. First, you are probably more sensitive to the energy of spaces than you realize. Jung said the unconscious perceives that the conscious mind misses. Some people are deeply attuned to the psychic field of others, their voice, their gaze, their silence, their unspoken tensions. When someone enters your home, they bring not only their body, but also their energy, their unsolved emotions, their stories. You feel that as heaviness, as inner restlessness, and it can be deeply exhausting. Second, your psyche needs space. Jung saw introversion as a natural necessity to bring order to the soul. Time alone in silence helps your mind realign. But even single visits can disrupt this fragile balance. What others see as laziness is, in truth, your system gasping for air. Third, constant social interactions can alienate you from yourself. Jung says that the true self can only emerge in the inner stillness. Polite conversations, constant presence, endless friendliness, all of this can distance you from your innermost being. It's not that you dislike people, but being with others often means setting yourself aside. Fourth, the mere presence of another person can activate your shadow. The shadow, Jung's term of everything we have suppressed, memories, trauma, unwanted aspects of our personality. Sometimes all it takes is a casual remark from a visitor, and suddenly you feel restless or irritated. It's not always about them, it's about what they awakened in you, a part of your psyche that has not yet been integrated. Fifth, this withdrawal you sometimes feel may be the beginning of something sacred, your process of individuation. Jung says that individuation means becoming who you truly are. That path begins the moment you stop trying to please the world and start listening to yourself. You realize you need time, silence, and distance, not to escape life, but to engage with it more deeply and honestly. And finally, the sixth truth, you are finally learning to listen to yourself. You learn to say no without guilt, to close the door without bad conscience, to respect your boundaries without feeling rude. Because every time you are kind when you don't want to be, every smile, every gesture you give without the energy to back it, you abandon yourself to fit into someone else's world. And you realize that you can't live like that anymore. It's time to honor your soul. Picture an old man with a long white beard holding a lantern in his hand, walking around through the dark night on a quiet path. This is the Hermes, an ancient archetype with deep meaning in Jungian psychology. Jung says the Hermes is a primordial image, a universal energy that lives in each of us, even if we don't always recognize it or embodying it. What does this have to do with you? Your desire not to receive visitors and to be alone at home. A lot. The Hermes symbolizes the inner call for withdrawal, for wisdom, and for self-knowledge. It is the impulse that drives you to close the door and turn off your phone, not to escape, but to hear what is going on inside of you. The Hermes lives in silence because he knows that only in stillness does the brightest light appear. This archetype doesn't represent empty loneliness or cold isolation. It represents the courage to look inward, to face one's own shadow, doubts, and fears, and in doing so, to discover one's inner light. No one else can give you this light, only you can find it. And to do so, the hermit needs a sacred space often. That is your own home, your retreat. If you feel an almost irresistible desire not to host guests, to maintain in quiet, it may be your inner hermit's calling. He asks you to slow down, not to lose yourself in the noise of the outer world, but to reconnect with your core being. Jung believes that answering this calling is essential to mental and emotional health. And you know what? Following the path of hermits is also an act of resistance against the frantic pace of the world, against superficial relationships, against the constant pressure to be available and social. It is an act of self-love, of soul care. So the next time someone asks you why you prefer to be alone or don't want visitors, remember the hermit within you. He stands there with his lanterns, showing you that true light is born only after you have entered your own darkness. It is completely okay to need silence to find yourself again. For Jung, the hermit was not a sad figure, not a social failure. He is the guardian of inner wisdom. When you follow the hermit's call, your solitude begins to transform into a journey of growth. In that quiet space, you find answers that the noise of the world has drowned down. There you allow yourself to feel, to think, to reflect without rush. And slowly your soul begins to heal. You start to recognize patterns, integrate your shadows, and rediscover parts of yourself that had long been hidden. You developed a quiet strength and inner confidence that no longer depends on external validation. For many, this path is challenging because the world out there celebrates constant doing, networking, and social activity. But the hermit reminds us to truly be there for the world, you must first to be there for yourself. That is the wisdom of solitude. So if you decline a visit or prefer to be alone, you are not closing yourself off. You are preparing inwardly to meet others later in more authentic, deeply connected way. First with yourself and then with others, the hermit invites you into his deep transformation. And if you feel that inner call, you are already on the right path. Now that you have met the hermit within you, one important question arises. How do you find the balance between the desire for solitude and the need for connection? Jung taught that healthy life doesn't mean denying the social world or isolating yourself completely, but establishing the conscious dialogue between both aspects. The hermit calls for silence, withdrawal, introspection. The outer world demands engagement, activity, participation. The art lies in respecting your boundaries without shutting yourself off completely, and in not forcing yourself into social interactions when you are not internally ready. It is a daily practice of listening and communicating clearly. You can create small rituals that protect your quiet time, reading, working alone, or enjoying a morning routine just for yourself. At the same time, choose intentional moments to connect with people who truly nourish you and respect your space. This balance may not be easy at first, but it is deeply liberating. And most importantly, you don't have to justify it. You owe no explanation to anyone except yourself. Society may not understand it, but your soul knows what it needs. Jung says individuation means becoming true to yourself, even when the world demands otherwise. So allow yourself this path. Honor the home is within you, while also cultivating genuine connections that nourish your soul instead of diluting it. Then loneliness no longer feels like a burden, but a sacred space for renewal. The world is loud, full of expectation, and sometimes your inner voice chases you from wanting to be alone. But respecting your boundaries is not selfishness. It is an act of deep self-love. First, learn to recognize your inner signals. Is your body tired? Your mind scattered? Your mood irritable? This is a sign that your system needs a break. When you notice this, allow yourself to slow down, even if it means canceling plans or turning off your phone. Second, communicate clearly. You don't need to explain everything. A simple, "I'm staying home today. I need time for myself," is enough. Those who love you will understand. Those who don't, that's another story. Third, create a sacred space. It could be a cozy corner in your home, a favorite spot in a park, or a morning ritual that grounds you. There you connect with your innermost being. There your inner hermits feel safe. Finally, be gentle with yourself. Don't expect to always function or be socially present all the time. You are allowed to simply be, quietly, fully, peacefully. Honoring your longing for solitude means you're honoring your soul. It is a path to becoming whole, just as Carl Jung taught. Perhaps now, at the end of this journey, you feel that something deep has been touched within you, something true. That is the beauty of Jung's work, the uniqueness of every soul. There is no right or wrong way to be, only your way. And if your way means staying home, away from visitor and noise, that does not make you strange or less lovable. Jung reminds us that individuation, the process of becoming whole, means embracing a part of ourselves, even though society doesn't always value. So when you respect your longing to retreat, you are honoring the essential part of your soul. You don't need to fit into external modes to be happy. Your home, your silence, your solitude, these are sacred spaces where your soul renews itself and grows. There in that intimate space, you find the strength to meet the world in your own ways, with authenticity and inner peace. If you take away just one insight today, let it be this: your way of being in the world is valid. Your love of silence is a legitimate expression of your soul, and it deserves respect, above all, from yourself. We've reached the end of this journey, but in truth, it is only just beginning. Together, we explored Jung's 6 truths, met the hermit's archetype, and discovered how solitude can become a wellspring of deep wisdom. Now, look inward with gentleness. Recognize that your desire to be alone is not a weakness. It is a reflection of deep inner connection. Your boundaries are not walls of selfishness, but acts of true self-care. And there, in the stillness of your own space, you hold the possibility to bloom each day, becoming a little more your true self.